Oh, okay, yeah.
Good evening and welcome to the Public Art Select Committee meeting. And welcome to the Squamish Nation traditional territory where we're meeting this evening. Thank you all for being here. Our first order of business is to adopt the agenda. So the recommendation from staff is that the April 3rd, 2019 Public Art Agenda be approved as presented. And that is Meg, motion, seconded by Angela. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries, unanimous. And so under committee minutes, we have the minutes from the Public Art Select Committee meeting of March the 6th. Last month, and the staff recommendation is that those minutes be approved as presented. Do I have a mover for that? Meg Fellows, seconded by Catherine Atkinson. Yes, Devin.
The agenda printed out around the table is different than the updated agenda that was published. So depending on which one. So we are looking for the one that has touring public art, sea to sky, Sydney Lyons.
I have
At the very bottom.
Yeah, we have that.
Oh, great.
I have that.
Yeah,
Sorry
so
to
the
interrupt.
amended agenda. Yes, I should have noted that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's got amended agenda.
Where does that fit in the agenda?
It's on the very bottom.
It's at the very bottom of the
Can
page.
you give me a number, please?
4 business, 1 week.
4.
Thank you.
Peter, did you have anything else?
Sorry?
I saw your hand. You're good? Okay.
Oh, I want one of these. That was all.
Got it. Okay, so on the motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. Motion carries. Is there any business arising out of those minutes? Seeing none, I'll move on to the business portion of this meeting. And the first item is public art applications. And I believe we're going to hear from 2 people.
Correct.
Stan and Curtis.
Yeah, Stan Matwychuk first. Do you have a presentation, Stan?
Yeah, that's in here.
Awesome.
SD card and
You bet. You bought
other
it.
ways to.
Stan, would you like to have a seat there
Sure,
at the end of the
yeah.
table? And
No, not at all. Do you want to drive? I
Oh.
just assumed you were going to drive.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll drive.
oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
I didn't look in there. Scary something.
It's kind of scary.
No, totally.
Welcome, Stan, and thanks for joining us. I intentionally didn't include your last name because I don't want to butcher it.
No,
So
it's
maybe
totally
you
fine.
could,
It's Matwychuk. So yeah, there's a lot of consonants in there that usually aren't side by side, so it's a little challenging.
No, I didn't say it correctly.
Mine.
Oh.
Send the girl card.
This one.
That little guy right there.
Okay. Well, thank you for letting me take a little bit of your time here. If you're not familiar with what I'm about to present, I'll give you a quick little background. So I had the idea a couple years ago to convert some sort of underutilized exterior spaces in Squamish that were majority beige or just not sort of aesthetically pleasing. We live in a town that's very creative, and I just felt that there was a need to portray that physically on exterior surfaces. My background is visual arts and illustration and graphic design. So a couple years ago, I just sort of tried to get this going. So there's nobody really much more than myself, other than artists, and So I'm just kind of spearheading this in order to see some color around town and sort of celebrate the community and the creative culture that we can create. One of the, we're going to try not to read the slides because everybody hates that. But the idea behind the festival is to curate the visual dialogue that we have available to us. There's a lot of great people in town, and whether you're an illustrator, a media designer, a lot of people can portray their style, and I believe that murals are a great way to showcase a community's dialogue. Stories, backgrounds, historical aspects are all in that realm of murals. So the mandate of the Mural Festival, which I've kind of come to understand, is that we're trying to elevate the creativity of the community, and we're also trying to make sure that there's a responsibility to the exterior buildings that are allocated to creativity. And along the way, all the artists are paid. No one along the way is, there's a very, I've been trying to be as honest as I can. You start out as an artist, and everybody always says, you can promote yourself, you can do this for free, just do this, just do that. And at some level in everybody's artistic career, you start saying no. So when I started this, I was like, everybody always wants to get paid for their work. Everybody wants to be reciprocated for their efforts. And so the idea is that all the murals are paid, all the materials are paid for, and the supplies therein. I don't make any money off the organization of the festival. My idea is just to sort of orchestrate all this. So in order for these public services to be visually sustaining and making sure that everybody's they're also very inclusive, we have to be very, accommodating for, some people have certain ideas that may go against the grain of contemporary culture or things like that. So I'm trying to construct this to steer the just sort of the structure so that everybody can be understood that it's inclusive and we're not standing on anybody's rights. It's just sort of very understood that we're all a community-based organization. So the process is we put out an artist call, we walk around, and I basically try to focus in downtown Squamish. We have been successful in the last couple of years. First year we aimed for 3 and we got 2 murals completed. The Public Art Committee gave us $2,000, which was allocated for the 3 artists. One artist actually dropped out and the surface location changed. So there was leftover money, which we carried over to 2018. So this was one of the first artists, or one of the first murals that was created above on the wall of the Freemasons Lodge in downtown Squamish on Cleveland Avenue, facing north. Artist Steve Cole, he's a local tattoo artist downtown. If you got, the lights are a little bright, but I assume everybody can see roughly where this is.
Kelsey can dim the lights for us.
Yeah, just a little bit there, that'd be awesome. So yeah, when you're looking north, downtown Squamish, leaving Squamish, you're on your right side, just above Pearls, adjacent to the Fields building. This mural was created with spray paint and acrylic paint. Another one was created by another local artist, Mary. That's his pseudonym. This is on 2nd Avenue, down on a private residence. One of my learning challenges was to understand that the landlord also has to have a dialogue with the festival. So they have a real, whether it's the landlord or the building owner, I have to be very careful how the artist portrays the imagery and make sure that the landlord or building owner is on the same page, essentially, because we don't want any surprises along the way. Everybody has to be there's a very open dialogue with all this, and the idea is to just promote creativity, but also be very careful of how we move forward. So in 2018, we got 3 murals done. We carried over about $700. This mural is on the Lotus Garden downtown on Cleveland Avenue. An artist, Baz One, used to live in Squamish, lives in Whistler now. This is the building, if you're looking south on Cleveland, right as you pass Dunbar Cycles, it's the first thing you see kind of coming into Squamish there, across from the Husky. Coming into Squamish on Highway 99 on Mags, on the, I guess that would be the, south facing wall going north. So this artist is based out of Vancouver, but he's very prominent up and down the corridor. I met him actually in Squamish, but he was pretty excited about this because the owner of Mags is a very creative fellow. Yeah, for lack of a better word. And he was very excited about the project. So the gentleman that was included, Soak is his artist name, was very excited to put this mural together. So one of the processes was to make sure that the artist gave renderings before the Public Art Committee gave the go-ahead for all the surfaces. The idea is that we have dialogue and then nobody's, pulling the trigger before something happens. This mural was actually an exciting one for me. So in between, it's kind of like they call it one and a first and a half avenue, but it's the alley between First and Second. So it's behind Fields and behind Saha Eatery. These are 2 photos, so they're kind of one on the left is the first photo you see going into the alleyway, and the one on the right is just further down. Now there's a patio being built that's going to encompass this area. One of the byproducts of this festival is that it kind of gentrifies the area. It livens up the unused spaces. It creates a lot of color. It raises the bar for businesses and the sort of the visual nature of the area, and everybody gets kind of excited about it. The landlord got on board and actually got her to paint 3/4 more of the building, so actually the whole alley was created. So with this theme of mural and just same style all the way along, but then there was killer whales or bears. I really, if you guys want to explore that, I would really recommend that. It's a nice walk from, say, Save On Foods to here. For 2019, I've been sort of working on getting new services promoted for the area. So the Naughty Burls come forward. They've got some sort of alcoves and exterior services. The House Out Brewery at the in the alley behind the building. They have about a 6-foot concrete exposed exterior that they were happy to add color to. And then there's the Crash Hotel Squamish, which is the old Chieftain Hotel. Yeah, so they're based out of Toronto. It's sort of a younger style hotel. They're going to be very proactive with backpackers, the demographic that comes through Squamish. And they are very excited to, they're putting murals all within the building itself. And so on the exterior, they were kind of wanting something that was social media savvy, whether it's something where a person can be interacting with the mural to create the content. We've all seen, maybe if you haven't, in Kitsilano there's this really great mural just right on Broadway that is a pair of angel wings, really massive. And if you stand right in the center, it looks like you're wearing a pair of wings. And that mural has been quite, has raised the area of the notoriety of the area just by a really great design. So yeah, the goal this year is for 5. I'm going to try to push it a little further. So that would be, so I've got 2 more services to sort of source out. I haven't put the artist call out yet because I haven't confirmed any monies, so I don't really want to get ahead of myself. Ideally, the festival runs from August to the end of September. 2 months. Those months are pretty dry for this time of year. So it tends to work out pretty good. It looks like it's going to be a lot drier this year, so I think we'll have a lot of time. So the ask is that you guys, I request that you guys support the Mural Festival. The idea would be for 10K for 5 murals this year. That breaks down to about 2,000 per mural, 1,000 for the artist, 1,000 for materials, and then and just a reminder, all mural money goes to the artist fees and materials and supplies. Any monies that aren't allocated will be taken for next year and just are held in sort of in perpetuity. The festival, I mean, to be honest, it's a big ask, but I went to the Squamish Arts Council and I submitted for the community enhancement grant, and they came back to me saying they don't support public art because of the public art committee. So I'm not going to double up, but I figure I had to come forward and ask anyway. Last year I had a mural project in West Broadway that had a budget of $3,000 for materials, and I leveraged all of my paint material to make that festival in 2018 possible for Squamish. So basically there was about $3,000 worth of paint that I just donated, and all of my time was allocated to that as well. So there's a lot of in-kind time that's donated towards this, and it's just something that I'm passionate about. So basically this is, I mean, we can get into further detail, but this is sort of like the brief ask. So the next step for 2019 is to confirm monies, to put up the artist call. I'd like to confirm 5 artists, confirm 5 exterior services, and then meet with you guys again to provide the progress and prior to the start of August. So essentially, I just believe that murals can create a lot of vibrancy within the community. Buildings are utilitarian by nature, and I think that by adding color and dialogue with an image, you can create a context for tourists and locals alike to actually create dialogue. And I think it's quite powerful. We're all familiar with Menezes, I believe, on the island. Great community, real small, but they saw that visual art could be an avenue through tourism that could be an asset. I believe Squamish is changing quite dramatically. There's a lot of buildings going up, and I think something like this could be very advantageous to developers to sort of steer the dialogue in a very creative way. If you're familiar with Vancouver, the Mural Festival down there is pretty exciting. Last year they did 45 murals in sort of the Mount Pleasant area, fully funded. All the artists made money. So one of the organizers I've been sort of liaising with, and Charmaine, the lady now, she works with the Arts Council in Whistler. She's the executive director. She, basically let me sort of borrow the idea, and we worked together to move this forward. So, I really thank you for your time, and that's kind of the short and sweet on my my portfolio slides. I created a couple of videos that are really quickly sort of the progress of the slides. How do I find a title? Yeah, right there. Let's see if I can just do this, and maybe it'll play.
How much time will the video take?
A couple of seconds here.
Okay.
Oh, if it doesn't work though, maybe. I use Macs, so this might not be
Municipalities aren't
Mac friendly.
generally.
Oh, hold on,
Oh,
something's
wait.
happening. Okay, so this is the one on.
There you go.
Okay. So this is Liaison behind this 1.5 Ave behind Saha, behind Fields. It's a pretty quick little video. Basically, she and a friend tried to execute this mural as fast as they could. just because they have a 2-month window, but she got in at the end of September. So this is Baz 1. Exciting part about this one, he wanted to do this mural as best he could, so he actually took a portion of the monies and rented that lift out of the allocation of the money. So yeah, it was pretty cool that he actually leveraged his own time and money as well.
Stan, I'm conscious of time because
Yeah,
we have Curtis
totally.
standing by.
Yeah,
and
no, I appreciate
Carolyn.
that. There's one more, and I'll leave it for your. You can
Yeah.
find it all on Instagram.
So I'm sure you have a number of questions, and I just will reiterate, our time is precious tonight. So committee members, make sure you're efficient with your questions. Devin?
I just was going to recommend a brief process for the next.
Yes.
That we review any questions and then say thank you to Stan, and then have Curtis come up and discuss his application, and then say thank you to Curtis, and then provide the committee the opportunity to review budget and debate.
Okay. So if I heard that correctly, we're going to take some questions for Stan. Jackie?
Stan, what, I saw some sponsors listed in there. Have you approached them again, and are you approaching new sponsors? And is the 10K your budget, or the 10K what you're asking from us? Is there a bigger budget?
To be honest, there is no budget. So
Zero-based budget?
yeah, so basically it's whatever I can do with what I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, the more money the better, but yeah, essentially, if you guys allocate 10K, the budget's 10K. Sponsors have been forthcoming with sunglasses for the artists. United Rentals gave me a really good rate. So just leveraging.
Do you have a paid sponsor?
Not as of yet. I remember talking to you about Cloverdale last year. Yeah, I already had the materials from the previous project, as I mentioned, but yeah, that'll be definitely something I'll look forward to, because I don't have that sponsor this year, or that project. Yeah.
So either them or Home Depot.
Yes. Yeah. Hope is ideally as local as possible.
Okay.
Anybody else?
And sorry for the question. Our house does another mural festival at the same time, I believe. Is it?
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. That was a project that was put forth by them to do that mural there. It ended up being a Coors Light commercial, so I think that there was the rug was pulled out from under them.
Okay.
They were promised some things, and a bunch of money came from Coors Light. Yeah, that kind of stung a little bit, but yeah, I try to be as professional as possible.
Anna?
Are you looking at locations other than downtown?
I'm open to it. I just saw a need in downtown Squamish to revitalize it, and I know that the plans with a lot of the district have been focused on that. So, and me living close to downtown, I would be very happy to make it town-wide, but considering the budgets and my feasibility of the projects, closer is better for me.
Keeping them all concentrated is easier, like in one location?
Yeah, logistics for sure, storage, getting artists on site, things like that, moving paint around. But I'm definitely open to it if there was a possibility of other places, for sure.
Peter?
Where's the $2,000 budget coming from? Is that like compared to the last 2 years versus something in Vancouver versus something comes along like I want a small one on ground level versus something on 3 stories up?
Yeah, so I mean it's a ballpark budget, because depending on square footage, paint, that all, we've all painted houses or rooms. I mean, 2 coats of paint can, depending on how big the walls are, can be more. So I try to ballpark it, because depending on the scope of the project, it can be very elaborate or not.
Because last year it was about 1,000 in total.
Yeah, in total, yes,
So this
exactly.
year you're adding an artist sort of fee. Is that roughly what it is?
Yeah, roughly it was about $1,000. So, but I also had about $3,000 of materials that I leveraged against it. So it was a challenge, and yeah, there were times where I put my own money in, but.
So talking about budget, one thing I'm always passionate about when especially when it's public money given out to organisations, how many views did those videos get?
I can pull that up
Just
on my
roughly,
phone.
50 or 5,000 or 50?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say 5,000, I mean a couple hundred maybe.
The
Yeah.
reason I ask it is that budget so far is for paint and material.
Mhm.
I always think there should be a marketing budget in anything, especially when we have, like, we're putting money towards it.
Mhm.
It's like public art, whoever
Yeah.
it is, it's like that sponsorship money. So the cause and light thing, no matter what. See, they were very smart and they did it the right way around because they got their name everywhere and got some money from it. So
Yeah.
it's like we always learn from that, and that's things. I'm wondering if that could be part of this budget.
It's a possibility. I mean, I was a little skeptical signing a non-disclosure agreement to go into a party, and then everybody stopped and had
For
to
sure,
say,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
then
we've
hold
done
up
it.
a
Just
cruise
done
like
that.
hand, you know. So it was kind of interesting. But the idea for a marketing budget would be ideal. But it's just, I mean, it's more of an in-kind thing that I just have done. So I mean that in-kind money is there, but it's my time that I'm leveraging. So I'm trying to get physical money to artists and for materials to get the murals painted. I'd love to have the great budgets, but yeah, one year at a time.
Devin?
Could you maybe just ballpark on average what the average time it took the artist to do the one by Corsa, say?
So it was probably about 6 days from start to finish. So picking paint, mixing paint, getting ready, making the time, allocating the parking, making sure he was available, the weather, things like that. So yeah, about 6 days. But I gave a 2-month window just to make sure that there's a weather window for us.
Sydney?
Quick question. We have a public art map that's part of the district system here. If the committee were to grant funding, would you be comfortable having a condition be that the artist uploads their piece to that map?
Yeah, I think they'd be happy to promote on every level for sure. Yeah.
What about maintenance of the murals?
It hasn't really come up yet. I would love to say I'd save money for that, but that's a challenge because I'm trying to get a non-existent budget approved. So I assume it would be either between me or the landlord, hopefully the public art committee, but I don't want to ask too much. So maybe in future years it'd be a legacy budget or what some people call a slush fund, but I don't like that word because it sounds, yeah. So
Maintenance budget.
maintenance budget, yeah. So it's just, I want it to be responsible and the monies be allocated properly, so.
Peter?
You just mentioned the landlord or building owner. When you've approached people before, without going too much detail about the process, the building owner is super excited and really want to get this done, i.e. what engagement have they had? Because I'm always there's something we can talk about afterwards, but I'm interested whether there should be an ask from the landlord and the person doing it's pretty cool, because that's for clarity and conflict of interest. I was actually going to talk to you about the mural thing, but I'm like, well, I think I should contribute a small token amount or something to say, well, if I'm going to get involved and I'm going to be really passionate about it, maybe that's quite admirable.
Yeah, I mean, leveraging time and effort is, number one. The landlord and the building owner are key people to have involved. So depending on the motivation, some landlords are just like, go for it. Some business owners are like, I'm okay with it. The landlord has an idea of what he wants. So it's just a series of meetings to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Oh, because you look at spaces in town and go, oh, that would be a cool place, and then go to the landlord rather than go, hey, everybody who wants a mural on the building.
Yeah, I kind of reach out and sort of do all the footwork, and I mean, that's in-kind time that I've, yeah.
So I'll hold questions there. I have a process question for Devin. Assuming the committee supports this, it would require a motion?
Yes, it would require a motion with the amount of funding which the committee wishes to allocate.
Okay, great. Stan, thank you very much.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dan.
And Curtis, please join us. Do you have a PowerPoint presentation as well?
No.
Just kicking it old school?
Fancy pants and a fancy shirt. Nice hat. That's all.
Presentation.
I did print out a copies of Curtis's application for the committee to review, and I will bring up his
So Curtis, while she's doing that, maybe you could introduce yourself.
Sure, my name's Curtis Suave. I've lived in Squamish the last 20 years. I go by Cortez, that's my art name. I started I put on a really awesome event, Unite the Untrite, at the Brew Pub about 10 years ago, and it was encompassing the idea that we're surrounded by so many athletes and artists, because I had an injury one year, and that's when I started painting. And after that, I started realizing how many friends of mine were DJs or whatever, and it's kind of yin and yang, and we all kind of really share that. When I talk about that stuff, everyone really grabs onto that, like, older, new Squamish, everyone's on the same page with that. And so I just like really bringing people together. I got asked to be in an art show at the library, which is awesome. Normally it's a really long wait. And so I've got the whole north wall, which is a big wall. I've got like 10 paintings in there. It looks pretty awesome if you get a chance. And so I've had a couple really awesome art openings. My first time I body painted and rapped. I did my first live performance. Second time we had a couple bands in there. I did a shadow puppet show, and I worked with the local chocolate shop because I'm a chef myself, and we made some Cortez chocolates, you know. This time I was like, what am I going to do to like impress people, you know? Because I really like, my first art is getting noticed. And so I was like, what am I going to do? I was like, let's shut the street down. I want to paint the crosswalk right at the library crosswalk. That's the best gallery in town. It has the best lighting. It's the easiest to look at art. You have the most time to look at art. It's not a cafe. It doesn't feel like you're staring at someone. It's not a restaurant. And yeah, so May 5th is the closing reception. And I was hoping that that would be able to get funding for that date to be able to paint the crosswalk.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions?
I follow you on Instagram and I love
Oh, right on. Thanks.
Sydney?
Maybe a more question for Devin.
Yeah.
Because operations, from what I understand, has some small budget for crosswalk rehabilitation.
That would probably be considered debatable.
Okay.
Generally, if the piece is originating, it's relied on the Public Art Committee to initiate it.
Right. Okay.
They're definitely faded though.
Oh yeah, yes.
How would you describe the piece?
Catherine?
Abstract.
And is
I'm
it,
an abstract purist.
yeah,
So I don't make a deer, I don't make a tree.
yeah.
You might see that in it afterwards. But if someone says they see that in my painting, I paint all black and start over again. And so getting my art out there has been like a hard thing because I feel like people don't want to look at it. They want to look at a tree and a deer instead of just going for a hike.
Yeah.
But I make abstract painting, and it's kind of like when I first did body painting, I was like, what am I going to do? So I practiced for a month and a half making flowers, and I eventually made a grasshopper that looked like a grasshopper. When it came to it, I just made abstract again, you know, and so.
Part two. Do you have an estimate of the life of this piece on the road? Because we've done crosswalks before, and the paint is specialized and more expensive, so that depending on what we use. I mean, I'm sure you know all that, but I was just wondering if you've given that any thought.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
My ex-partner was a road painter by trade, her whole family was, and so I'm very aware of a lot of the materials that they use, and I use actually some of the same materials, the glass beads that they use on the highways, in my work. So when you look on a sheen, you'll see it all sparkle on an angle. So they have 10-year paint and 1-year paint.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for 10-year paint. As cool as my art, I'd rather be changed up every year. I think it'd be an awesome opportunity for another artist to take a 40-foot mural on.
Devin?
I'm just going to, we'll work with, if the Public Art Committee were to move forward with supporting this project, staff would recommend a consultation with the engineering department for final approval so that road safety could be taken into account. Currently, the engineering department is working on a set of guidelines for creative crosswalks so that the committee can apply that lens as they evaluate applications such as this.
So ultimately, final say would rest with operations based on?
Engineering specifically.
Okay, yeah. Peter, did I see your hand?
No, I was just
Okay.
really impressed. You climbed silent vents.
I got a photo taken on it.
Oh, that's pretty impressive. Nothing to do with that.
Any follow-up, Devin?
No.
Good.
The road closure.
Well, hold on, Meg. I have a few people ahead of you. Anna, and then Amy, and then Meg.
I'm just curious, this is a question for Devin. The lifetime of one of these sidewalks. Now, we know they're not going to be there forever. What's the commitment we give to the artist that your art will be there for 2 years, 5 years? How do we work that out?
In situations like this, I love it is what it is, and that not all art is supposed to be forever contributing. I think that specifically this committee has a really cool opportunity to experiment and see what, like, no pun intended, see what sticks, you know?
Absolutely, because I know especially with crosswalks, you have people squealing their tires on them, like you get unfortunately damage done to them. How do you maintain that?
Yeah, the reality is, to be fair, is that this is probably a 1 to 2 year
Okay.
crosswalk, and it's staff's opinion that that's fantastic.
And the artist is okay with that?
You're gonna walk on my art, squill your tires on it if you want, you know, but look at it first before you wreck it. Yeah, I know the first day it's gonna look awesome.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm planning on using different products
I
that,
was wondering
that might
about
like
that.
wear down at different times, which I think is really interesting and cool because we all wear down at different times too.
Because I know you use a lot of texture in your
I
art.
do, and that's why this is a really awesome project for me to really change how I adapt what I'm doing, and same with time. Having a short period to execute such a huge thing is, on my style, is going to be awesome, huge challenge.
Good. Amy?
First, a comment. I just want to point out how incredibly cool it is that there's artists who want to paint on buildings and crosswalks. You know, these architectural canvases are really neat, and it's great that this committee exists to be able to provide an opportunity for that to happen. And then I have a question, Curtis, in regards to the way that the art is selected. I mean, you know, obviously free reign would be perfect, but I know that with, you know, for example, the murals, having to work with the landlord to make sure that it's, you know, an image everybody likes. Like, what would that process be like for you? You know?
So I have a painting that's at the library, if you get a chance to go look at it, just
Yeah.
across from the water fountain. You'll get a chance to really look at the colors and look at what I'm trying to like grasp in a 1D painting, you know? So I think there is a picture of that painting that
So it would be
I
like
got my associate to just plant it on there as
Okay.
for you guys to see something, but the more I stare at it, my own painting, I was like, no, you know, I'm going to basically do the bottom 3/4 of that painting is my planning. So I've worked on a lot of different things on how I'm going to layer it as far as the colors and stuff like that, what stencils I need.
And I do just want to manage the committee's expectations in terms of if there's any major adjustments to that that engineering requires due to safety, I'll just throw it out to you guys.
Okay.
What does that mean, throw it out to us?
Well,
In terms of budget or in terms
No.
of?
no, in terms of artistic integrity of the piece that you're expecting. Like, so right now, if there was a major shift from what was going to be experienced there, then I would flag it for the committee.
Any follow-up, Amy?
That's it, thank you.
Okay. Meg, then Anna.
I'm just interested in the 12 hours of road closure and how much that costs and what that actually does to the entire project. I like the idea, I think it's great. I like the idea that it's 1 year, you know, and it's not gonna be there forever.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I think it's pretty cool, but I'm just wondering what happens to the budget, like 12
It's a
hours.
Sunday,
plus
if
on the road.
anybody's wondering.
But it's just, it has to be flagged and all that kind of stuff, so I don't know how much will come out of our budget and where that's coming from.
Likely there would be some, a nominal amount of funds. I suspect that operations, the motion would read something like with the support of operations, but from a staffing perspective, it's not unrealistic to have Curtis utilize the supplies of operations, but not the staff. So you close half of the road, pile on it, detour, move it, shut the other half of the road.
So it may not be that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Meg.
Maybe the expectation is that an associate, colleague, friend is there assisting
Yeah,
assisting
totally.
with the traffic.
Safety spotter.
Yeah.
Anna?
I just wanted to clarify the texture thing. Are you
Mhm.
using any materials, because you have to think people are walking
Well,
on it,
again,
you
my
don't wanna-
ex-partner was a road painter, so very well aware of how much lift is like allowed on a crosswalk, you know?
But
So-
it'll be flat, is what you're saying?
That's the
It will
idea,
definitely-
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
From our conversations, you have also referred to her as your project manager on this.
Yes, exactly. So she's very, yeah, she does tons of murals. Liesl Peterson, she's
Yeah.
done all those other murals there.
Jackie?
Yes, I know he's a multi-talented artist, extraordinary.
Definitely.
So your budget is $1,200, right?
Uh,
Reading that correctly?
well, without the closure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so that doesn't include the closure or
Yeah,
any
or any money for me as well, yeah. Yep.
Okay, so it's purely, so is that your ask of the committee?
I don't know what's available to ask. I'd love this project to go.
Okay.
If me asking for money is the stopping it from going, then I'm definitely not asking for money. I have no money myself, and it was just crazy to me to think that I wanted to do this. And then she was like, okay, we might have a budget. I was like, oh yeah, it's still gonna cost a lot. I didn't even like, I just have ideas and try to make them happen, so.
Okay. Just trying to understand what is being asked of us to help you get this
Totally.
great
Paint,
project.
closure,
Okay,
um,
so then Devin, in terms of our ask of the committee is $1,200, and then the district will take on the cost of road closure? Okay, all right. And then
I mean, it will come from your budget.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes, I clarified that already with
Okay,
Meg.
sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
understand that, okay. And then the other piece was marketing, again, to Peter's point, is
I love that idea. That's
will,
awesome when you
will
said
this
that.
now then get added to our map?
That'd
Will
be
it
great.
Will you have media on hand, like?
I have long arms in this town. I have a plan of making it a big deal. I didn't want to open my big yap yet till it's on, but I know Meg's 99 is having a Cinco de Mayo huge party
Yes.
as well too, and we're really good friends. And so just building the huge energy, you know, and I've become friends with a few other random artists, and we're starting an art society. And so we've got dancers and all sorts of performers, all sorts of cool ideas to make it a good. And I've got a friend with a drone, video drone. Lots of photographer friends who are stoked about this. So yeah, depending on how big of a deal I'm allowed to make it,
How much money do you get?
close the whole street, man. I can make it happen.
Okay, all right.
Peter?
Oh, no, I think it's great. I was just going to say, as long as it's not people taking pictures lying on the crosswalks. I mean, like Sam's idea, then it's like,
No, angel
don't go
wings.
there.
Right, angel wings on the front.
Don't do angel wings and lying.
That's awesome.
Get loads of attention, but
Any other questions?
And we just superimposed that there. The plan wasn't to fill the whole block. If allowed, we could, but the slats are just fine to fill in the slats, so.
Sorry, what's the intersection there?
That's the library.
So just down the street, outside the door and to the
Down the
right.
street, a couple blocks. When you say fill in the slats, you mean the stripes?
Well, it's a 10 foot by 2 foot white strips. That's a 40 foot by 10 foot block.
Oh, okay.
So just
I
visually
visualize it like that though,
Yeah,
it's
the-
gonna be fully filled in.
No, not necessarily.
That's not the plan, no. I just
Oh.
posted that because I'm not very technologically inclined, you know, it's just a picture of my art, so you have
Okay.
something to kind of grasp.
Okay.
The idea still is to do the 2 foot by 10 foot slats and keep it
Okay.
a normal
Got it.
walkway,
Okay.
but
Also, your art will come through that, sort of fill in the gaps between?
No, that, like, depending on what I'm allowed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not for sure in my mind what I think would look the best artistically either. So we can kind of play with it a bit, but
Yeah, the level of comfort, needs to,
it'd be double the paint.
there needs to be a level of comfort that the committee decides. You know, there's been 2 examples of Curtis's work up on the site, neither of which pose any conflict with the culture of Squamish, the social culture of Squamish. No red flags, and so it's really the committee putting the trust in Curtis.
Motions for these 2 projects? This is the time? Or-
Sure.
Can I just bring one final point out, just to
Yes,
remind
Peter, go.
everybody when we did the crosswalk at Valley Cliffs.
Yeah.
And then afterwards there was like, oh, by the way, there was this bill, an invoice that we suddenly came on, so just checking that when we approve this and we have budget for the
Yeah.
closure, it doesn't, like, is an unknown. It doesn't sound like it's going to be crazy anyway, and if you're comfortable that it's not going to be anything wrong, it's
So-
just a flag.
Yeah, so I would say it's a different scenario. That was a part of contest of the mayor for a day. It received a lot of praise, and mayor and the engineering department at the time decided to invest in the stencil. And so that will continue to be a crosswalk forever and ever. Amen.
This one's more straightforward, in other words.
This
it's
one,
pretty-
there will be no stencil
No
being
surprises,
purchased.
no.
This is
Yeah, okay.
abstract art in its truest form. It will live until
Till it
the
doesn't.
snow remover scrapes it off, and you know, a new piece of art will be born.
Even more abstract.
Yeah.
So, let's deal with Curtis first and then go to Stan second. Before I entertain a motion on this, I'll point out that I believe this needs to be a little better defined. Like, there are no dimensions anywhere in the application. And I think that the engineering department would function a whole lot better if there was absolute clarity on the size of the project and what it encompasses. So Curtis, so just,
Like the square footage?
Yeah.
You're asking?
yes,
Right.
because it's a little out there with what we have right now.
Well, yeah.
And engineers are very technical people that
Mhm.
require numbers and
I'm gonna need a filter.
So you gave us some dimensions earlier. Can you just run that by us?
So it's 2 foot by 10 foot pieces, and there's 13 of them.
That's a standard size for.
Yeah.
It's just standard. Basically, from an
Lucky
engineering
13.
point of view, it would just be a standard template which will be used to imagine from anyway. You can't change the dimensions, of course.
So the art would exist within
That boundary.
Yeah,
the existing crosswalk?
absolutely.
Okay,
That's the plan.
that's clear.
Yeah.
Got it.
And Devin I'm thinking those
Sorry,
dimensions.
I was pulling up the GIS. I missed the last point. Apologies.
Any motion we come up with,
Yeah.
should it include specific reference to dimensions, sizing?
I would advise the committee against it.
Okay,
I think that,
It's a staff.
yeah,
Okay.
we need to, like, the motion should read something like, you know, the Public Art Committee grants X number of dollars to Curtis to execute a piece of abstract art at the crosswalk located directly across from the library, until such time that it naturally degrades and period.
Tara, did you get that? Or a version of
I
that?
got a version of it,
You got
yeah.
a
Okay.
version of it.
Is there a member of the committee that would like to move Okay. So moved by Meg Fellows.
So I would,
Fill in some blanks.
Does that automatically include the reference to engineering? Do you need that included in, or that's assumed?
Yeah, let's put it in.
And do we need to put a dollar amount on it?
Yes, we do. Let's, subject to approval of the engineering department.
And that we support it to the tune of $1,200 plus the cost, ouch, of the road closure
Okay, great.
to come from the public art.
yeah,
Okay.
and for comfort, to no more than a maximum of $500.
For the road closure.
Yeah, I think we need to put a cap on it.
I'm
Okay.
happy to say 2,000.
Yeah.
Total.
What
Oh,
does
sure.
Oh,
500
upset budget
entail?
of 2,000.
Do you
Yeah,
guys know?
and I can certainly execute on that motion.
Okay, so that's seconded by Peter. Oh, you want to give, well, it needs to be seconded
Oh, right,
first,
okay, sorry.
seconded by Peter. Terry, are you good with the wording
Yeah.
at this point? Sydney?
I was just going to, I don't know if I want to move this, but put it on the table to talk, I want to say I love the idea, it's great, but to, on our budget discussion, which is on our agenda, to consider moving these two projects in that area so the committee has a better full picture of our financial situation.
Why? We've never done that before.
It's
We
my,
have.
I guess, suggestion. I don't know how that works in terms of process with the motion
Okay,
currently.
I'm taking that on advisement and suggesting we have a lot of money. And,
Are you telling us we should squander it?
no,
I mean, spend it?
suggesting we should invest it wisely in the
That's
talent we
insane.
have in this community. Any follow-up, Sydney?
Nope, as for
Okay.
the committee consider.
Catherine?
I think if I can remember it now. Oh, I know, this is for Devin. Is there, do we have an idea of how much, a number of how much it would cost for a closure like this? Do we have an estimate?
You know, as I would say, I would anticipate that it's equipment, not equipment plus time.
Okay,
So mitigated.
okay. Thanks.
And did you have something to add to Sydney's thought?
No.
Okay.
I know,
thought saw
I
your
did
hand
just
go.
throw up this is generally referred to as a zebra crosswalk. That's currently what exists at the intersection now. And so I just wanted to apply that lens to your expectations as you work through this.
Great, anybody else?
Could we have a read-through of that?
Yes, that was, if I didn't see any more questions, Terry, will you share what you've got that we're
Absolutely.
voting on?
So, that the Public Art Committee supports the funding of $1,200 plus the cost of road closures of up to $500 for Curtis Suave art, crosswalk art at the library intersection, subject to engineering approval.
And that figure of 500 works for you?
I'd like the project to go, so if it goes up, the whole thing goes up to 2,000, I'm okay with that too.
So that would mean that
Because
the
we're going to.
500 would actually be $700 for the road closure. So,
8.
yes. I'm really good at math, as you can tell.
Would you like me to change it to 8?
8, please. And could it also include Second Avenue? Because if you say outside the library, that.
Library intersection on Second Avenue?
Yeah, that would be great.
So do we, just understanding that, are your numbers firm on your 1,200, or should we give some wiggle room to you?
It was a rough estimate. Liesl estimated the price of the paint. So
Should we allot 1,500 then, and the rest of the 2,000 to,
Sure.
I don't know, I'm just asking.
If we have an offset budget of $2,000, can these guys figure it out?
Yeah,
Yes.
That would be great.
that would be fine. I'm just trying to give you guys enough flexibility and not take the
Yeah.
definition out of our.
Catherine?
Oh, just one last thing, if this does pass, I will let Toby Jackson as the curator of the foyer gallery know.
Oh, we talked about this tons.
You did
She
that.
meant to tell me to name drop and say she's all about this project. Supports it 110%.
All right, you're way ahead of me.
And Yeah, if she was here, she'd vote yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Meg?
The only one other thing I want to do is when you get this completed, everything going, are you good with doing like a one-page report so that we can have it on file? Because I'm really keen to actually get reports at the end of these art projects so that we actually have them on file.
Like from me?
Yeah.
A report?
Yeah.
On what?
Well, just on the project. Yeah, this is how much you spent, this is what went on, this is the
What you
date, this is
learned.
the artist, you know, this is our in-kind contribution, boom, and
Maybe-
we've got it on file.
What would be useful is maybe, you know, what you learned, what was good, what wasn't so good.
Could I make a video instead?
Sure.
I don't really, like, you know, I'd have to get someone to write it.
That's fine.
Or
Visual.
simply,
But I can make
simply
It's
documents where you guys
again.
understand what happened.
Okay,
So I'm thinking, Meg, the point is, the committee wants that information that you're asking for. Just would Curtis come and give us a presentation afterwards?
It's just
that fills in
then
all
if
those-
these people aren't here, then we forget it, and I'm just worried. And
You want it documented.
if it gets filled in on the art map or that kind of stuff, then that's great because it's there. I'm an older generation, I'm used to like a paper copy and boom, this is
So
just
you want
fill
the
it in and boom.
documentation of it?
Yeah, exactly. And the
Some
form,
record.
it doesn't matter, it's just for the record. And listen, it's not you, we don't have a lot of documentation for a lot of the artwork, so it's.
Documentation is mostly on your computer now though, right? So it could
it's
be a
getting
5-minute
there.
video.
It's getting there.
Devin, what do you got?
We need to reread the.
I'm trying to simplify the motion, Terry. I've done a draft up there that staff work with Curtis Suave on the delivery of an artistic crosswalk at 2nd and Main to the budget of $2,000.
I'm happy with that, it's friendly amendment.
Okay, very good. Terry, does that work for you?
That works, if you could just leave it there for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please make sure you spell Curtis's last name correctly
Yeah.
by striking off the S. We don't want him leaving angry at us because.
I'm actually
Right?
not even sure. Yep.
Okay, I'm ready to call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries, unanimous. Thank you, Curtis.
Sweet, thank you guys very much for all your time.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
And if you get a chance, check out the library.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let us know, you know, is it going to be announced, the event, is it going to be an event?
Sorry?
Is it going to be an event so that we come, people want to come?
May 5th?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, the closing reception for the art show is that day as well. And so this is my live art for the closing reception at my art show at the library. And so, yes, I'm going to make it a big deal. And
So
probably
Terry-
go.
Guaranteed good weather, right?
Yeah.
I'm a sun charm, we'll see.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you, Curtis.
Yeah.
And now I'd like to move on and discuss the mural initiative. And Anna.
I do have a question. I first want to say I want to see lots of murals because I absolutely love murals. I want to see them in the estates. I'd love to see them in Valleyfoot. I just have a question, just to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do as a committee, because I know these locations are private properties. When we say what our role is, our public art program, and this is, I think, a question for Devin to clarify. The public art program commissions, purchases, programs, and develops art in 4 public areas. What's the definition of public areas? Because we have new and existing public buildings, art walks, public parks, trails, municipal capital projects. So these are private buildings, and I'm more than happy to see the murals out there, but is it okay for us to give money for, like, if I want my house, I want a mural on my house, like, how do you,
Talk to Stan.
you know, I don't want to say no to the public,
Yeah.
because that's not what I'm saying. I'm just wondering,
Okay,
is this our mandate?
Devin.
So simply put, I would say the committee's mandate is public art in the public realm. And so although these murals exist on private property, they are still within the public realm.
By the public, okay. I just wanted to clarify that, because I don't think it's that
Your
clear
house, on the
in
other
here?
hand, might not be as public as the committee's looking for,
Okay.
Well,
and to be tongue-in-cheek.
The one mural that Stan had up there, I can't remember, I think it was a ship. It was on the side of somebody's house, but it's on a main street in downtown, right? So it's.
I just didn't want to vote on something and then down the road find out, oh, we've given money kind of in the wrong way. I want to make sure we're doing it in the right way because I want to see the murals up there.
Well, and precedent has already been set because this committee has funded this festival previously,
Yeah.
right?
So do we need to switch something a little bit in the wording or just public area just means it's visible by the
Yeah,
public?
I think
Basically,
we're good.
okay.
Nobody has to pay a fee to see it.
Meg?
Right.
I also think it's really good that it actually comes through here because rather than, it's almost an approval process that we get to vet, some of the art that is visible from public space.
So will we see these murals before they're?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the artist call will go out, the artists submit. The artists submit their proposal for an idea. I have the surfaces, I try to allocate or arrange the location and match up the artist. So the location and the art makes sense and the landlord's on board. So, and then I come back to you guys, put it all back together, we do another talk. Everybody
Perfect.
gets
So
excited.
our time for questions was earlier. I really want to get to Carolyn and respect her time. She's been patiently waiting for us.
Yes,
So
thanks, Carolyn.
Really like to have a motion. Sydney?
I move that the committee supports this project to the tune of $10,000 with the commitment that the art ends up on the committee's public art map.
Great. And now I'll need a seconder. Jackie, second. Questions?
I
Meg?
just wanted to say that I'm sorry that I understood that we'd be able to talk about budgets and that kind of stuff after that, and that wasn't part of the first part of the conversation, but I was wrong. My concern about the budget, because I just had some questions, but in 2017, $2,000, and then you had 700 left over, so I'm not sure how much was spent last year. And the other thing that I would like to drop in your ear is, while I'm grateful for you and all the work that you do in terms of organizing this and being gratis, I think at some point we need to start paying for that too. We need to start understanding that art just doesn't appear boom boom.
Yeah.
And so one of the ways that would help us is if, we put 10,000 and your donations are up to, and I'm thinking materials and artwork, of $5,000, and your organizational skills at so many hours, blah, 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 is so much, so that we get a better idea of what we're actually purchasing here.
Yeah.
And I think we need
Definitely.
to try and start being fair to you too, because
Yeah.
what you're doing is not costless,
No,
No, I appreciate
there's an
that.
arts administration cost.
It's-
Yeah.
It's heading, sorry.
So,
Gotta keep-
well, we have a motion and it's $10,000. And your point is well taken.
I've said it.
Can I just?
And, well, I've got Angela and then I'll come to you, Peter.
Well, I think the budget is
Something that I'll suggest, given the fact that we do have a certain amount of time as well, and this is obviously a hot topic and I am in agreement, I think it's amazing what you're doing. So many artists in this room we know we give selflessly all the time just for the passion that we have for art form. I might suggest that perhaps in future weeks, months, this year before the next festival, 2020, may I suggest that we somehow work with Stan to look at how we can better fund his time and perhaps work more proactively towards making sure that we're funding the artists correctly. And I'm even looking at CARFAC, thinking about working towards making sure that we are paying the artists to a professional standard if we really want to take this to the next level. I think that's a conversation for another time. I'm all for funding this project now, but I think this is something that's going somewhere, and I would really like to see us head in that more proactive professional direction.
Okay, great. Peter?
That's almost exactly what I was going to say, but I was going to say that that's pretty much it. Like, the one thing, rather than like, how do I say this quickly because I never ran out of time. An example was we were just talked about increasing the budget, and I'll have to echo Sydney's comment, is that we need to go through that process, I think, because it's not just Stan's thing. It's like almost most things we come here, it's like his money will how can we facilitate it, that match funding we can talk about marketing budgets and stuff like that, and that should come into a suggestion of a brief for people to help them support these projects. I agree.
Okay, great. So the motion that we have is that the Public Art Committee support the Squanderers Mural Festival to the amount of $10,000 with the expectation of the murals being captured and marketed on the public art map. Last chance.
That wasn't word for word, but was that the, yeah, okay.
Spirit.
Thank you.
I'll just ask one more time before I call the question. Any questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you, Stan.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate all the questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, if there's any issues or questions,
No,
I'm
thanks for
very
building
happy
that.
to
Yeah.
answer all of it.
Come back and tell us more.
If I have some mural artists,
Definitely.
North End, like,
Definitely, I will send Devin all my contact.
Perfect.
Anybody has any artists point them my way,
Yeah.
I'd be very happy
Okay, great.
to
Oh, for
get
sure.
involved.
Yeah.
The next item on our agenda is for number 2 development project, and Carolyn Lamont is here to talk to us about Sirocco.
Hi.
Thanks for your patience.
Oh, no problem. It's quite interesting.
You have some memories of this.
Yeah, I used to be where you said. Yeah, I'm Carolyn Lamont, and I work for Bethel Land. And it's this project. What I'm going to do is I'm not high tech today, and I'm sorry, you're going to have to share. And it's probably a really small font that I should know better. But what I was going to do is try and describe it, and hopefully you just have to look at the pictures. This is an initiative to integrate public art into the urban form during the construction of a building. And the Sirocco project is those buildings that are causing all the traffic issues over on Loggers Lane right now. There's 2 buildings under construction and the third one starts soon. It's about 138 units, and who knows, there may be float homes one day too, but those are proving to be really hard. What I wanted to do is just talk to you a little bit about the project, and on the first page at the bottom you'll see the site plan with the 3 footprint buildings. And what's been fundamental both from the developer and from the district is that there's a really strong public realm along the blind channel. There's going to be a beautiful cycling and pedestrian trail. There's going to be landscaping that Tom Barrett has designed, which is very, you can sit there and learn how to paddleboard in one spot, and you can have coffee with your kids playing in some funky little thing in another area. So even though it is a private property for the most part beyond the trail or up towards the buildings, that will all be public use. And as well, there's the 2 breaks between the buildings, and again, that would be available for public. Anybody could go hang out and have a lunch, and which, just so you know, that existing building, you could do that now, and it's one of the nicest places to sit on a great day. But the strip of land, many people, you probably all know because you're involved with it, we don't own the strip of land between our property and Loggers Lane. And it is owned by BC Rail, and I believe the district's been working tirelessly to try and acquire that piece of property. And I think eventually it'll probably be a green route or active transportation route. So one of the things that when we went to design panel, they said is that they would like that, the parking garage. And actually, if you look at the Mural building, the one that's there with the circle window, it's not that attractive where the concrete garages. And so what can we do with that? So we proposed these green screens, and there's a photo there that just shows you, this shows a 2-story treatment, but it actually is just a 1-story treatment. And I actually think that new building that's going in, the car wash that's going in, which is going to be one of the nicest lube and car wash shops I've ever seen. But I think they're doing the same thing because I see they put these screens on it. So they put a big screen and then stuff grows on it. So that was the first one. But the second one was, and if you drive by right now and you can kind of see them, there's these little pop-ups, and what they are is the elevators for the underground garage. So they just kind of pop out. And so AKA are architects, and again, I apologize, those are really small, but they want to treat those, and what it would be is they would wrap an art around it, but the art would then be protected by a layer of glass. So it actually, I believe, the artwork would be scanned and then stuck to each of the glass. And actually, the artist that we've selected actually wants to do the elevator as well, like the door. So it'll be this really kind of three-sided artwork on these little concrete pop-ups. And you can kind of see the little pop-ups on the page, this page here, where they are right now. So if you're looking at it and you go up the stairs, the artwork will continue all the way around. So we did our desire was to have a local artist. We did a big Google search and talked to a few people, and we submitted it, I think it was to 5 or 6 artists, and including Squamish Nation. And we said, you can submit new or existing art. You know, we're okay with that. And yeah, we sent it out to 5. And we did get a response. Kendra's not here, so I can say this, but I didn't want to tell her, that she was the only submission. But we really liked her work anyways, so it had nothing to do with that. We wouldn't have put her on a short list to begin with if we didn't like. And she's a young painter, and you can see some of the images of what she's done now. What she plans to do is a new piece on both of them, so 2 new pieces. She's doing the canvas. I think in sections. One's like one canvas that would then kind of wrap, and another one's sort of there. So we're kind of excited about it. I was trying to understand process, and I just work with the planning department, and Devin's in a different department, but I think what Asia, who's our planner, said there really isn't a process for this. I think a good point that you raised earlier about what is public art, and because this is private property, but it really is in the public realm, and we appreciate that. And I think part of the approval of the project was recognizing that ugly concrete face. So I'm kind of excited about it. I think Kendra is too. I apologize, she's sick today, because she was quite excited to come and to present to you all and to show you her work. So yeah, that's about it. So this is really for your information. I might say that we would love to have this on the public art map. So if that would be a condition, or I don't even think you have to do a move or anything, but we would love to have that, and we can be in touch. And then also to let you know that there is another public art piece, part of this project, which when you, right now, the 3rd building isn't built, but when you drive towards the parking garage, and say you kept on going towards, like you're going to cross to the Boza Bridge or the new Boza Bridge, there will be a piece in there, and that will be a Squamish Nation artist. So we call it the Boza Bridge. I don't know what you do.
We're not calling it that.
Oh, good. I'll leave it there. We really didn't know about the Boza Bridge until just recently. So, and that's one of the issues with that public art piece is we don't know how that'll work. But it will be with a Squamish Nation artist, and we're pretty excited. We're working with Eric Anderson on the interpretation of the historical significance of that site. So I'm getting a little off topic on your busy agenda, but I think it'll be really neat when it comes. Yeah, so.
Yeah, we're excited about the Blind Channel Bridge also.
Are you? Okay. To do art, like make it something interesting?
Yes.
Yeah, it would be really neat. Yeah.
Great. Meg?
Just a question, and you may not be able to answer this, but the Squamish Nation piece, is that going to be like a painted piece? Or
No,
is
it'll
that
be a
going to
sculpture. It'll be a sculpture, and in talking to initially the district, there was our original artist statement was forestry, and then the district said, well, we'd like it to be a Squamish Native Nation artist, and we're like, ooh, forestry. And then I talked to who's the ones working on the forestry group, and Eric said they're already recognizing First Nations contribution to the forest industry. So what we're going to do is we're focusing on Squamish Nation's interpretation of the history of that site. So I think that could be almost hopefully educational, interpretive, whatever, because the history is quite, as you probably know, that site is the first landing in the town site. So it's kind of exciting to have something that reflects that. And then also I should say that along the foreshore we'll have, I think there's 3 or 4 interpretive boards that, again, Eric has also helped us with and working with Tom Barrett on. So you will learn a little bit of the history of the site with like etched interpretive in little stories. So.
Jackie?
So will the artist be recognized, and how many entrances are there? How many pop-ups are there?
There's 2 pop-ups.
2 pop-ups.
So she'll do 2 separate canvases.
And will it be on canvas or will it be
No.
on some outdoor?
So she'll do the canvases, then she'll scan them.
Oh, okay.
And then they'll be affixed to these. So it's a real color splash.
Yeah, and then covered in glass.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But will there be some sort of plaque or some sort of
Yeah. So we were just.
recognition of the artist? We talked about recognizing artists and
We and if you have examples of how it's been done well, we. You know, she did ask that, and we were just going back on the contract, and she said, I said, absolutely, we would like to recognize you, but we don't want it like huge. And this is Kendra's art. You know, it'd be like a tasteful little. And if any of you know of an example,
I didn't mean it had to be a
There's an
didactic
example right
panel,
there.
but yeah.
oh, that's perfect.
That's one. There's
Yeah.
others. There's other
There's
ways.
others, but that just
Yeah.
happens to be.
Yeah. There's
Yeah,
Yeah.
where there's a little bio and
Yeah.
okay,
But there are other ways to do it.
okay.
I'm sure staff can guide you on that, or some of us.
And Kendra, she was something she raised, which is important to her. And I do want you to know that she is getting paid,
That was my next question.
and she's I just wrote it down. I think it's 3,900. If we didn't put a price. We had no idea. I was just interested in learning that, but we had no idea what to charge. And we thought, well, let's. My brother's actually an artist. He's doing the Cloud in Richmond. I don't know if you know the new Richmond Aquatic Center. You should Google it. But I know that artists are historically underpaid, so I said, let's put it out and see what comes back, knowing it's still a competitive process for her. So that's your checks and balances. So within, I think, the 39, I believe that includes her scanning, which is 800. So, yeah.
And so will the ask of this committee is what and how?
Oh, sorry, it's 4,900.
Oh,
Sorry, it's how much?
4,900.
4,900.
The ask?
There isn't.
There is no ask.
This is an information.
This is
Okay,
yes,
all right.
this is an opportunity for you guys.
To understand, but I'd like, again, that be demarcated on our map or somehow, so that the artist gets recognition.
Catherine?
I just wanted to say to Caroline, thank you, and thank your colleagues, because it's really important. The developers are beginning to talk to us, and as a committee, and it's a big thing. It's only been quite recent, so we've been growing now. The committee's almost 4 years old, and so thank you, and keep coming back if you ever need to.
Well, I think really it was design panel. Is someone here on design panel?
Jackie?
Jackie, yeah. So
Okay.
I haven't been there for a long time, but design panel did raise the issue. AK Architects that said, "How about this?" I thought was quite a creative response. It perhaps not super expensive, like for the developer either. On recognizing that it is still private development. So.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you very much for
and
sharing with us.
Timeline, it should be in by June.
Ooh,
I think she's working on that. Well, she's probably not working on it right now, but she was really excited about it. Okay?
Yes,
Great.
thanks for your
Okay,
presentation.
Thank you.
Next up is for number 3, the student project.
I'm not sure, I don't have a couple more of these, I gave everyone a copy of this
Last
last
month.
time. I have a couple of extras, but I didn't print off more than just a couple. So if you don't have a copy, You should have brought it on.
Sorry
For
about
less time. Sorry, guys. I'll try to be really quick here. Right, so basically I just drew up sort of an application process to propose a youth public art competition. Ideally, we'd like, I put a timeline in here, we can look that down more to the bottom, but the idea would be, I've just put down some sections, and then some of them have questions that I'd like to put out to everyone else. I'm not sure if you had time to read, your homework was to read through it. I'm not sure if you had a chance or not, I totally understand if you didn't, but basically, the idea would be, for the actual application, we need to have contact information. Because we're dealing with youth, we'll probably need some sort of parent information or consent to be included with that. That's something that I would double check with someone like Natasha to see at Howe Sound Secondary, to see if that's something that she thinks would, but as a teacher myself, that just makes sense. You want to get parent permission and approval. I thought that maybe we want to think about a theme. We might want to have students choose from a list that maybe we put together, or we could just have a theme that they have to work with. We could decide if that's what we want to do. I think whether or not we decide to have a short list, we should consider including a short description of that theme too. Oak Bay had an application process that included that too, which was one of my research, one of the things I researched. Anyway, and then in terms of submission, it's very similar. I worked off of the one that we already have on the website. I think when you're dealing with youth, you want to make sure that I mean, with adults, we tend to assume that they got all their I's dotted and T's crossed, but with students, you want to make sure that they actually think things through. So I think it's really important that they outline what the materials are and think about how they're going to install it and think about how long it might take them to do it and that sort of thing. Estimated maintenance and so on. The students aren't going to know this. They're not going to, but I think it's important for them to think about. And so if I was to go into the school, for example, if I was to go in and talk to Natasha and then talk to her students about the application, which is something I would want to do, being proactive about this, I would explain to them what that looks like and what these sections are before they were to go and actually apply for anything. Yeah, and then of course they would need to include some sketches and inspirational images and photos as well, is something that I always get my students to do whenever they're proposing an independent piece. And then the proposed site, they have to think about the actual place that this was going. So they might want to sketch on top of an actual photograph of the site, or they can work with Photoshop to superimpose something as well. So I don't know if you had any, that was just the actual application, sort of sections of it itself and things that students would have to fill in and think about and plan as they propose the piece. And then some things to consider, if we're going to go with themes, if the committee decides we want to do that, we really need to do that soon, like now. And that would have been like March meeting if we had a chance to present this then. I have reached out to Natalie, but we literally just got off of our March break, so I have not had a chance to talk to her yet, but I will reach out to her in the next week for sure and go over this with her and see if this makes sense to her, if it makes sense to all of you. The other thing is how much money are we planning to put towards this grant? Is that something we determine later? Is it something based on the project itself? Or maybe we get a set amount, and that might be something we have to consider after we talk about budget. And then I'm happy to go and meet with local students. I mean, I do it every day, it's my job. But if anyone else would like to join me and have a sort of conversation with the local students about it. And then we need to formalize this application, and I really think we need to do this by the end of April, by mid-May, sometime in the next month or so. And then, I know we originally talked about the idea of the applications being due sometime at the end of September. So the idea being putting it out to the students now, having them think about it now, and then in September, having it reiterated again and giving them a good month and a half to actually get an application in, with the idea that it would be installed next spring, summer sort of thing. So this is a bit of a long timeline, I know, but when you're dealing with students, you need to go in steps like this. And I think especially if we want to do this right and have this be a yearly event, if we do this right the first time, give it the time it needs instead of rushing through it, I think it's going to be a more successful thing annually. And then it'll just become part of the fabric of the local youth art community. They'll know that this is something that they can apply for every year. And then maybe it'll grow and expand, and we can always change it and tweak it, but. And I know Meg brought up some suggestions, which I'm sorry, Meg, I've forgotten what some of them were, but I agreed with you on several of them, but I don't know, yeah, so I'm hoping to, I know we have a short amount of time, but whatever, we have a big agenda stuff.
Questions, comments, feedback? Meg?
One of the things that I was interested in is a whole issue of themes, because we're going to be looking at banners as well, and I really like the idea of having a list. And it's not that you can't have other, because somebody comes up with a good idea, but I worry that everything turns into mountain biking and kayaking and mountains, and it's kind of like this community is about a lot more than that. And I really do think that, you know, like culturally, like forestry, like First Nations, we need to be building, I think, a list. And then if people sort of say, then we can say, well, we've got a lot of mountains and mountain biking, maybe we need to have something else from the list that can go down to the bottom. So I would really think that it might be useful that we, not just for this, but in general, that we as an arts committee with public art, the banners and this, that we actually think about doing that.
I think with students as well, I know that with the way that we run our program down the West End is students have a wide list of themes to choose from that have nothing to do with necessarily something going on locally, but they're all about themselves, right? And things going on with themselves and with their little groups and their community, but they have a lot to say, and they're they will surprise you with the kind of things that they can come up with if you give them some broad enough interesting themes to work with too. So,
do you have an example of that from the school?
Well, I can put some together and but what do you mean example?
Well,
like
I think you said, did you not
artwork?
say that no, not the artwork, but the themes.
Okay, so 6 themes that we've proposed to our students currently in our school. Play is one. Digital blur, which is another one, we're having a great time with that. Natural world, identity, time, and what's that one? But there are 6 in total, and so they're specific yet very broad at the same time.
Yeah.
And part of the job of us as teachers is introducing them to artists that deal with these themes in a wide variety of ways. And so that could be part of the process that we can work with Natasha and other local art teachers, educators to show students possibilities with that. But just even giving them the topics, it's amazing what they'll come up with, just giving them those words. There's lots of things that they can do with that. So, but I did put, we don't have to give them a theme at all. They can pick their own theme. But if we had a little list, it might be helpful in helping and giving them some direction.
Just to clarify, the Natasha you speak of?
Oh, sorry.
That's Natalie?
Oh, Natalie, sorry, not
our teacher house help?
Yes, sorry, Natalie, Natasha. I actually haven't met Natalie yet.
She's
but
lovely.
we've been in email contact with each other, but I haven't met Natalie yet. Sorry, not Natasha, Natalie. Yes.
Anna.
I wasn't here for when you introduced this, so what age group are you talking about?
I'm thinking more so high school, or like somewhere between grade 8 through 12. That could handle sort of something big like this. I'm not saying that someone in an elementary school group couldn't, especially with adult direction, for sure. So I would never say, but that would be up for the committee.
I would suggest grade 7 to grade 12 because Don Ross is 7.
That's what I was thinking, or at least include grade 9s, because traditionally grade 9s were high school, right? Not just switched a few years ago.
Right. Well, we can introduce this to both the schools. We can do the middle and senior, for sure.
And Squamish is also K to 12, right?
Yeah.
Right, of course.
Devin.
Yeah, so, we can just introduce it to everyone and just see what we get. I mean, I'm certainly not saying that elementary age students couldn't do an excellent project. So.
Devin.
Yeah, I think I'm good enough.
No, the Orca crosswalk was done by
Yeah,
6, if I recall.
absolutely, yeah. I think I was just thinking, get in touch with Natalie over at Howe Sound First, just with students that might be really into doing something scope of this, but we don't know what they might come up with, right?
Anything else, Devin?
I was just gonna make 2 points, just because we're on the subject of student projects. Natalie reached out to me today, and she has a student who's interested in filling the youth spot. So hopefully we have an application, which is great, coming in soon. And I took the liberty of offering the extension that this committee is open to youth in general, should anyone want to come and participate. And that it does not need to necessarily be restricted to just one, that likely the committee would welcome
Sure.
additional voices.
We have at-large seats that are open,
Yeah.
and there's nothing stopping a 17-year-old from being in one of those
The
at-large
main
spots.
thing is attendance and participation.
And then the second thing I just wanted to point out is that the engineering department and myself and one of the arts teachers, Henry Verbeek, thank you. The engineering department is working on a lift station to service a new community going in around there, and that lift station has obviously metal doors, and so the Howe Sound, Henry and his digital art class is working on a themed project of Hardwired for Adventure that would then be applied. The students adjudicate it themselves, and they pick a winner, and then that gets applied to the lift station.
Does that come out of our budget?
No.
Cash.
I just had a quick question about the projects on it. I mean, hopefully this will go on in an annual way, but are these going to be projects that will end up being placed in sort of the school areas or further out in public, or you haven't gotten that?
I think what I was thinking is that the students, like if myself and whoever wants to join me goes in and presents this as a more formal project competition with an actual application we're happy with, that I would explain to students that because we're talking about the public realm, that they could choose a site or they could have a site in mind to work with.
Okay.
So whether it's a park or whether it's, maybe they want to do a mural or something, we'd have to look at them, of course. I would explain to them in the discussion that you also have to work with, if it's a private property, you have to work with the building owner or whatever too. So we have to work out those logistics. It could totally start at the school. It could happen at the school. I suspect, of course, we also have to deal with the Sea to Sky District and any rules and regulations they have about putting up art on their buildings or around in their property. But yeah, I think at this point I was thinking we could be open to anything if we're allowing anyone in the district to approach us with a public art application, that we could allow the students to do the same, but we can put some parameters on that if the committee decides to.
Can I speak to that particular
Quickly.
issue? Yeah, really quickly. I really would like to see the kids have their art in the public space, not the school space.
Yeah.
Because. I'll just leave it there.
No, I think, I agree with you. I think that, I feel like their art is always up in their school. I think
They're
that.
confined to prison of school.
Yeah, I think that I read somewhere, I saw somewhere that Natalie used to have an art bus exhibition somewhere too.
Cool.
Yeah, she used to get the school bus, and then the kids had an art show at the bus. And so just having students have the opportunity to get their art out of the school realm, I think would be really nice for them.
And for us, yeah.
And
for us.
That's
Because then it adds to our art.
Oh, of course we can put it on there. That would be great.
So we'll need a motion to get us direction. Go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, gosh, I guess I should have thought about that too a little bit. I guess right now, what I would like to see are a couple of things. One, does this process look good? Like, is this something I can continue to roll with as an application process? Are these parameters okay in terms of, like, if I was to come up like with themes, if we like the way this looks, I can come up with something a little stronger. Maybe we don't need a motion for that. I just needed some general. I wanted to put the information out there and get some feedback, and then I can put together something a little bit more structured in terms of an actual application for the next meeting. And then in that time, I'll also have a chance to talk to Natalie. I was just looking more for feedback.
Sure.
I think I need a motion at this point.
Devin has some thoughts on all this.
I agree. No motion
Yeah,
is
no
required at this
motion,
point.
yeah.
When you get to the point of spending money,
Then we need a motion, yeah. So I guess the big thing for me is, do you want me to throw out some themes? Do you want, like I can come up with a list, or if any of you would like to contribute to a list? Or maybe we don't do themes at all, that was my big one. And then the next one is the timeline. Does the timeline look okay for everyone right now? So the idea being that, again, I've started the process of talking to Natalie, but the idea of meeting with the actual students this spring, formalizing the application, getting that out to students this spring. Applications due end of September, beginning of October, installation next spring.
Okay, so let's quickly deal with themes. Thoughts on themes? I like the idea of letting the students sort themselves out on it.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other thoughts on themes?
I like the broad themes, so you don't get just mountain bikes.
Yeah.
Sorry to say
There's
that.
nothing wrong with
No,
that.
nothing wrong with
In
that.
their place, but
I'd
we
like
get too many
give them some
egos as well.
sense. We're not going to hem them in, but give them some sense. And I like the themes that you talked about. They're broad enough
Right.
that you could be really imaginative and creative.
If I came up with, say, a handful of themes that we could always put it like, here are some suggestions for themes,
Yeah.
but if students want to come up with something else, they can.
And there's
Okay.
always the other.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Let's leave the theme situation there. Timelines. Does anybody have any concerns with the timelines we've got in front of us? No? Yes, Meg?
I don't honestly have, but I just thought I'd throw out a few things, like, are you gonna have a celebration? Gonna put a plaque, like who, what, where, when, why, on that, and a final report kind of thing, wrap up. So that to
Students,
me
that's very important, reflection.
Yes.
is really, should be part of that. But I don't know if it's part of
I'll make
this
sure,
or not.
yes, and I've taken that into consideration. I'll make sure that that's part of the process going forward afterward too, that would be expected of the students. And yes, we want to do some kind of an event to showcase the piece and have a celebration of it and then commemorate it with.
Because they need to figure out the old planning of that, and that should be part of a timeline kind of thing
Yeah.
too, and who's gonna take that chunk of the project.
Yes, we will have that.
Sydney?
No on timeline. I like that the installation looks like it's allotted for the 2020 year,
Mhm.
and that means budget-wise, we can budget for this in 2020.
Yeah.
And then second piece was, okay, I'll leave it, brain's gone.
Great. So that gives
That's
you what
enough for me to
you
go
want
on.
and need.
I'm going.
Devin, that gives you,
Okay, I'll
Everything.
be in touch with Natalie and we'll get it going. Thanks.
okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much
yes.
for all your work
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it.
I acknowledge the work you have put into it and the work you will
Yeah, there's a-
continue to put into it.
And
'cause
again, anyone
it's a
that
bit.
wants to help, wants to go and talk to some high school students with me. Great. Oh, great, yay, okay, good.
Super. Let's move then to for touring public art, Sea to Sky, Sydney Lyons.
Yeah, so pretty much the agenda, I'm going to start with this video. It's 2 minutes long. Oh no, it's not going to work. You can skip it. It's not.
I didn't know it was a video.
Did you screenshot the slide?
No, I copied all your slides over, but.
Okay. It's a really cool video.
Well, you can send us the link.
Yeah.
Yes, I will.
It's not a big deal. I can explain what this is. So essentially, there's a public art installation in Montreal called 21 Suave, French, means 21 swings. And what it, yes, exactly. So what it is that it's a giant public art installation of 21 swings that make sound. And they are synchronized with, I believe, piano chords, so that you can swing in synchronization and create sound and music with your peers and people on the street. It's a really amazing sort of place-making, public art activation thing. Yeah, here we go. And the video itself was one that the artist sent me about the feel good of it in a community that they had touring in for a bit. This is probably different, but look at the video. I'm imagining that sound you're hearing is the swings. So this activation, it's really popular in Montreal. That's a permanent installation from what I understand. and they have a touring piece. I'm gonna,
Do you want me to stop it?
yeah,
Yeah.
about an hour and a half. Unless, do you guys wanna watch more of it?
I can be on it. I can send it over to
So this picture is of the touring piece. The touring piece is 10 swings, so it's a smaller installation. It's still a massive piece. It's 70 feet long and 20 or 30 feet wide. So I guess the pitch, we can go next slide. So the concept we already kind of talked, well, we'll talk about it. But what I want, the goal for today here is, sorry, I'll go back to concept. The concept is to bring the tour piece to the Sea to Sky. And what that would mean is ship it here and hopefully collaborate with our communities, Whistler and Vancouver, to see the piece tour from Vancouver up to Whistler or in some path of travel. The goal for today is for the committee to, either through official motion or unofficial consensus, similar to what we just did with the grant here, to give a nod if we want to continue endeavoring to figure out the feasibility of this project or not. And we'll get to cost because touring a piece of this size is not cheap. So keep that in mind in terms of our goal. Now I'll move on to the next point, being potential partners. So these are people that I'm reaching out to. I've already spoke to the City of Metro Vancouver today. They do have potential interest in this. Again, it's a municipality similar to us. There's a process. Timelines, it would be really awesome to get this piece here for summer 2019. Probably unrealistic given that we're looking at working with 3 municipalities and potentially some nonprofits in the mix. But if we can't do it for 2019, 2020 is an option. Just so this committee knows that the piece tour schedule is booking up for 2020 to go to Europe, I believe Europe or abroad. So that option could be off the table if this was something we wanted to continue looking into for future years, if not this year. Other potential partners, of course, you've got the arts councils on there. I did have a thought that if we're touring it in the summer of 2019 or 2020 for that matter, that there's some potential private partnerships with the 2 major festivals that are happening in some of our communities and likely a multitude of festivals happening in Whistler. Of course, Skookum is a big one happening in Vancouver. Then you have Constellation coming for its inaugural year this year. I haven't reached out to these characters, but they might have an interest in a small sponsorship towards seeing something like this happen in and around their festival grounds, or just in town with their name attached to it in some fashion. So there's some partners to consider. And then the next piece, I think, getting the nuts and bolts of is budget. So there you go. In terms of what the total estimated project would cost, we've looked at a touring schedule of 16 weeks. In reality, it would be 20 weeks because you have about 9 days exactly of setup and de-install and moving. Yeah. Again, this is why the goal today is for the community to be like, this is totally not feasible, we're not interested, or actually we're interested, keep going in terms of exploring the options. Kind of putting the numbers in front of you because they are a sizable investment for this committee, and kind of finding out what the appetite is for something like this in Squamish. So yeah, so you can see the cost there. The total estimate right now is $375,000. That includes, the plethora of licensing fees, artist time, installation, flying people from Montreal to here, a local team on the ground for setup and install, the requirements of each municipality put resources towards ensuring the piece is not being destroyed, a variety of safety requirements, a bit of marketing and project management is in there from both the presenter, which is the local municipality side, as well as the artist side. Yeah, so those are the numbers. I kind of summarized it as best as I could. I think there's another slide with a detailed budget, so you can see here it has been, those numbers didn't come from nowhere, it's been really detailed out. So this is what the artist has given me. They provided a discount, so to say, between the other 8 weeks of the project because they really want it to be in Canada and it's never been on the West Coast. So they have a particular interest. I did do my best to bargain as hard as I could, and this was the best price.
And it's available.
And it's currently available for 2019 between June and September.
But may not be available till the 20.
May not be available, it depends, we would have to like get working on it pretty soon.
Yeah.
And would it be in
What?
each municipality?
Jackie,
Sorry.
I have Catherine on
It's
the
okay,
list.
I'm good.
You're good. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. Would it be on the, so a certain number of weeks in Whistler, a certain number of weeks in Squamish, a certain number of weeks?
Exactly.
And that's yet to be determined.
Yeah.
So our portion of it is, sorry, the slide down.
If we go back one slide per week, depending on,
Like there's two possible, oh,
yeah, about
4 weeks or 2 weeks.
Yeah, so per week, it's about $23,500, let's say. So depending on how that breaks up per community, who wants it the longest, if you want to be even split. Yeah. I did raise the number of about $125,000 investment to Vancouver, and they said that might be steep for that committee. So keep that in mind. Considering Vancouver obviously is a bigger budget in general, it's a bigger place to put towards these things. So, you know, this project would pend, you know, cooperation with the other communities. I don't think, you know, that price ticket is something Squamish could hold on its own.
Are you allowed to seek, sorry,
Yep, go ahead.
are you allowed to seek, I should check with you first. Are you allowed to seek sponsors, like corporate sponsors?
Sure. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that was a parameter.
Well, this would be something that I'm proposing this committee undertakes in a sense, and I don't know what process what that would look like. Can the district look at sponsorship?
I don't know, just ask.
The district cannot look at sponsorship. It would be the Public Art Committee committing funds out of their major projects envelope to fund this project.
Meg?
I'm just wondering if there's a possibility that we make a recommendation to council to consider partnering with Vancouver and, or to exploring the possibility of partnering with Vancouver and with Whistler for this particular project. Because it is, I think it's worthwhile, I think it's really cool, I think it's interesting, and I think it's a way of perhaps getting Squamish more on the map with respect to the arts councils in Vancouver and the arts communities in Vancouver and in Whistler.
Sydney, you're already engaged in that conversation, correct?
Yeah, I think what you're asking is official direction from council.
Yeah, that in fact, that this might be something that is not so over the top that we just sort of say, forget it, we're not interested at all. I would feel more comfortable before we do a lot that council actually says, yeah, okay, that's that, you know, we would mind having a look at that.
Well,
Right.
we have our budget. We're the Public Art Committee.
So you're suggesting that we do, but our budget has to go through council anyway, right? We make recommendations to council.
Yes. I dare council.
Yeah, they haven't yet, but we've always can give them an opportunity to say, I don't think so, we're not gonna do this.
The role of
Devin.
the Public Art Committee is to provide, to be the subject matter experts and to provide council with direction of public art in the public realm. And so without, it would be my understanding that council would be looking to take direction from the Public Art Committee.
Okay, so I've got
The
follow
other
up.
thing I
Follow up,
wanted
go
to
ahead.
say is that because this is not a simple within Squamish project, because this needs to have liaison with Vancouver and with Whistler as well, that council may want to know before we kind of say, well, we've got all these details, now fund it. So that's my only concern.
Okay, yeah, noted. I've got Peter,
Yeah.
Catherine, and then Angela. Peter.
For that budget, I could find artists in Vancouver who have built this stuff already and could get one built and then it could go on tour and make the money back. I went to Birmingham and went to an installation really similar to this and it was a beautiful piece. My question, because I like the idea of actually, I wouldn't say no, because I think my thing would be yes, explore it further. The number just makes me take a really deep breath because of two things. One, this is a piece of art that was created by somebody who's now is a piece of East Coast art. And like I said, I've sat on pieces like this and experienced them, so I get it, been there, done, sort of thing. And so I love it. I'd like to see it. That's the sort of large installation stuff I like to see. It's interactive stuff. It gets people engaged. It's art. It's creative. It gets people thinking differently. But that number's ridiculous. Absolutely, like ridiculous. In my view, again, it can be wrong because I'm looking at it from more of a like creation point and a number crunching thing rather than an artist whose piece of art's worth that. You know, if you look at those giant balloons that went around and stuff like that. That was by the Japanese artist. It's like, okay, so that's like X $100,000 for me to bring my really cool balloons to London Thames. You know? So I get that part of it. But I was just wondering what your thoughts were with the numbers because it's your presentation, so I don't want to like get into like a.
I definitely appreciate that. I am also personally one who is always looking how you can do it leaner, so to say. With that being said, I would be concerned about copyright issues with this, particularly with commissioning it by the municipalities.
When was this commissioned?
Years ago, maybe like 5-6 years ago.
Do you know there's history to it in the story? Because I'm wondering where it went because I'm like, as soon as I saw this, it's like, oh, this is what I've actually seen before. And so I'm like wondering who the original is, where it went from because, like I said, there's pieces of which I've seen like that and I'm just wondering whether...
I mean, certainly could use some more investigation. Personally, I would be nervous approaching a project like that just because we've also engaged the artists at this point in time. So there's now a history and if we were in a scenario, if we were to, like, let's say, do a copycat piece.
No, I'm not suggesting that whatsoever. No, that's not what I'm suggesting. Okay. Is that I'm saying that there's this, basically an idea and a concept. It's about interacting with music and that sort of thing. So we go back to if we're going to sit around this table, going, what do we want to bring here? We go, what's the story behind it? It's like we want a piece that's going to engage people and people play on and stuff like that. Then eventually we might get to, well, let's do a musical thing. Then eventually we might come across this thing, be like, well, we've got this at 375,000, or there's this other one which another artist in Vancouver is doing, and it can be drums and the look, and I think that's what I was on before, and it was, I was trying to find it. There's a piece which is amazing, and basically to play this piece, you had to be in sync, and then it created sound, and it was like unbelievable.
Yeah, this is just one example that I've personally come into contact with and I'm presenting this committee. If the committee wants to do another project, that's totally fine. This is just something to consider. If you're interested in it, we can pursue it. If other committee members want to go out and bring other projects forward for the community center, that's totally cool too. Like, I'm not personally invested. I just want to know from the committee, is it worth more of my volunteer time to continue down this path or not?
Great, okay.
Can I summarize what I was trying to say there? It's not saying to change it, but I'm wondering but it's almost my question, what's the option? Is it this or nothing because it's a package deal, because it's not, like I said, we're all super limited on time, therefore that in itself has value, the cost per se to bring it, or is it like this is a project with one option and we could explore things in 6-12 months time because there's time to do that?
I would say if the committee member had another project they wanted to bring forward in 6-12 months, then that would be great.
I'm not trying to suggest that.
Okay.
No, I'm trying to say whether this came to the committee as a, hey, this is an option, but this is one of them that we've been thinking about 2, 3, 4, 5 options. Or this is the option, yes. No.
I haven't personally spent any additional time outside of this looking at options for this committee to consider. Yeah.
Catherine.
I just wanted to ask you why you thought that, why you became impassioned about this and why you wanted to bring it together.
I would say my level of passion is like a solid 6 on this.
Out of 10?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a cool. I really think this could be a really cool thing. I'm hesitant as a committee owner about budget too. Like, this is a big number. I was hoping it'd be less than this when I first engaged with the artists, but public art's expensive.
Catherine?
Okay, because in the past, and I'm not sure if you were on the committee at that point, we had talked about the sort of wind chime festival. There are sculptures. That's a West Coast artist, I think, but American, and other artists that use sound and anyway, and it wasn't super cheap either, but it wasn't at that level, I don't think.
Yeah. I think this is so expensive because it has so much notoriety.
Oh, I
behind
get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it, and
Well,
it's
I'm sure
huge.
there's an insurance factor there.
Insurance and moving it and all of that. I just also wanted to point out that not too long ago, we had a presentation from someone at the Biennale who asked us to buy this perfect day for about $50,000, which we would have had permanently. I don't know what the status of that is at this point. I know it's still there, last time I checked, but.
Still there.
Still there, but anyway, it's just, it's one of those things, there's so many balances to this. I think that we brazened it out in terms of blue trees and stuff like that, in terms of public concern. And I never have a problem with doing something that's out there in terms of art, except that it's not my money. And,
Actually, it
kind of
partially is your money.
Yeah.
A little
That
bit
much,
is
yeah, a little bit of white paint on the bottom is mine. And so I would say that if we were going out to tender, if this was an annual thing, we'd just like, $150,000, let's bring a wild project to Squamish, and this was sort of part of our mandate to engage with the wide world of amazing conceptual art that's out there, then I would say that's, I think that's like that would be cool. I would like that. But I just, 2 weeks and we could have bought that. You know what I mean? That's what is going on in my head right now.
Yeah.
So I think it's prohibitively expensive at the moment for this, for this committee, but I like it. I think it's awesome.
We could, with this number, it's not going to be realistic. I don't think it'll adjust that much, but when I was talking to the artists, we were on the higher end of things. So to allow that flexibility, because but they're saying likely things could come down. In that detail, there's like a whole list for like hotel rooms and flights and things, so if we could get some in-kind stuff, but we're talking probably of like a flexibility of maximum $20,000, I think, off the total bill. So it's not really going to impact that much. Again, we could look into sponsorship, but I would only assume that potential, and we'd have to figure out the nuances of that in terms of relationships, but the maximum sponsorship we probably could expect for Squamish's own investment is $10,000 at the highest end in terms of offsetting Squamish's investment. There might be stuff in Vancouver's component or Whistler's, but that's my guess. I don't have any preliminary conversations, I'm just guessing here.
Angela.
I guess my thinking would have been that if this wasn't something that the art committee was taking on as our own entity, but was someone outside of this committee coming to present it to us to get some money for us to sponsor it, that I might be more inclined to give some money to it. But like I think everyone's saying, it's a lot of money for us to just take on ourselves. But if this was something that was more, everybody was jumping in to between the different districts and so on, and sponsorship, that I feel like I'd be more inclined to jump in on it if it wasn't something that we were spearheading on our own and taking on and sort of, well, we can't afford that. We just can't afford that on our own anyway.
Okay.
I think it's fantastic. I love interactive art. I really would love to see it. If I had a lot of money, I'd just
Peter.
I would, yes, it was independent would lovely. I could just be a benefactress. Just bring a wild project in every year. But yeah, like again, if it was someone that was, if you yourself were coming as a member at law, or someone from the community said, hey, can you guys help me fund this project? I'd say, sure, we can throw some money at that. But to take it on ourselves, I feel it's a little much.
Okay, great. Peter.
I want to apologise because I get so passionate about that. When I saw it, I was like so excited, and then I'm like, what the hell? And so I didn't mean it in any way if it's a personal way I described it. But the two things I loved your idea, because I think two options I see here is it sounds like you've done a bunch of work, like a bunch of research. So if it's at this stage where, because Squamish Arts Committee yourself actually really has done all this work, but then suddenly everybody else in Vancouver went, oh my God, that's brilliant, here's $250,000. and it's another 50,000, and we only need 10,000, if you've done all that work already, then it's like, great, then we'll make, I think that's option one. And the second part is, again, for a large conversation with the committee, is what you just alluded to, which is that, is this the sort of thing that maybe we should do once a year, and you've already got a template, and those numbers just change, and the brief changes, and I could take that template, and for example, going to an event and see where a new art space is opening up, where all these people who create this stuff are going to, and I could go, by the way, here's this template, and there's a bunch of numbers, do you want to fill this out, and da-da-da, and we can find sponsors. We might support this in some way, you know. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like we have almost an idea of creating a big project like this, but it takes time. But it looks like done much work, and it's like seems a ways to go.
And I think if the other municipalities were to pitch in, let's say, more sizable contribution of the total pie, that probably the expectation would be that this piece would be in that place a bit longer.
Oh,
Yeah,
for
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
sure.
It would be my guess, but yeah,
I would
it's not
assume so.
out of the realm possibility. Yeah.
So I've got Catherine next, and I want to wrap this conversation up.
Yeah, I won't be long. My big concern really, other than cost, would be liability in terms of being on the hook for an amount like that if we don't find the partners that we want. So, you know, when you start entering, and I mean, you know way better than I do, start entering into those conversations, and then suddenly you've got 10 movable pieces, which are all councils or committees that have to decide whether or not they want to be part of it. And so a $40,000 investment turns into $80,000 when Port Coquitlam pulls out, or, you know, somebody is not available. Anyway, I thought, and I just wondered, with the idea I brought up to, and Peter liked, I mean, doesn't the BNLI kind of do stuff like that already? But it's for a longer period.
Kind
Yeah.
of. It's a little different. It's
Yeah.
not really tour. I can't really explain the model.
Yeah, that's fine, you don't have to, I'm kind of familiar with it.
I've
Thank
put
you. That's it.
myself on the list next. Do you have a preferred location if we were to move ahead with it?
Personally, I imagine this in Junction Park, but I mean, Brennan Park could be cool, Nexon Beach could be cool. Obviously, that's private land, but there's a variety of areas. You would need 70 feet long by 30 feet wide
Okay.
to support it.
And what do you believe are the next steps moving ahead?
The next step would be if this committee is like, nope, that's too much, can't do it, then that's great, and then the conversation kind of close the book here. If the committee's like, actually, you know what, we imagine putting aside money, and maybe this is a 2020, so we're gonna take 20,000 from our 2019, 20,000 from our 2020, and we're gonna do this, or whatever that might look like. If the committee wants to endeavor on a future conversation, we don't have to talk about the details tonight, but if you want to, then decide if you want to continue that conversation. So option one, close the book. Option two, continue the conversation, not continue the research.
Okay, that's pretty black or white. I like it. What's your pleasure? Carry on or shut it down
I
now?
don't want to close it yet.
Carry
I'm
on.
curious. If you
Okay,
don't
I've
mind
got
looking into
2
this.
carry
I
on.
don't know, like, I'm a to carry on person.
Meg?
The only thing that worries me is that if we're sailing under false pretenses here, and we're getting a lot of work from Sydney, that in fact, we're really not likely to go with them. That's the only thing. that
Can I get a carry on or shut it down from you?
Shut it down.
Okay. Peter, you had thoughts?
I think the third option is that it's still carry on, but I like what Catherine was saying, is that we carry on as like this, because at the moment we're just saying it's just the swings, but I like the project with the numbers, but I think it should be, it's a no to the swings, but it's yes to the concept and idea, if that makes sense. Because I think, in other words, my point is that this idea, concept, and some of the numbers make sense. The numbers with that one project don't make sense. That's what I'm saying, is that this one project is really expensive, as far as I'm concerned, really, my personal view, very expensive for what it is, i.e. there could be a project that achieves exactly the same thing in terms of like all the things that it does, but not for the same amount of money. So unless there was going to be, unless you said, oh, you know what, it's 300,000, but I think we can get it down to 100.
So
like, great for it, I'll go for it. But then,
I'm gonna go 2 carry on, 1 shut down, and 1 other.
the third way.
I will say, if you say carry on to be comfortable with the ticket number of $93,750 at some point in time. That would be my caveat. You say carry on. With, we could try to adjust that number, attempt the best chance to bring down, but that should be the number you're comfortable with.
Peter?
Is it carry on with this one project or carry on with this? Carry on with this, and then it could be like, oh, actually,
This, what's on the table today.
that swing from Quebec.
These numbers.
Okay. We got 2 and 2.
It's hard,
Anna?
so I think there's options.
I just don't know. The thing I keep coming back to is I think the goal of this was to put Squamish on the map. Like, is this going to be the only place, like Vancouver, Squamish was there on the west coast that's going to get this?
No.
Up until 2019, yes. Like, if
I
people
mean,
do it
that's pretty
previous.
cool
Yeah.
to me. It's just a lot of money. So this one sitting here quietly thinking about it.
I can give
just
you a
don't know.
journalist's perspective.
Okay.
So, because I used to write for the Globe and Mail, so, and I know Marcia Lederman a bit. And so if I was going to promote this project and somebody said to me, yeah, it's going to be for, we're spending $200,000 from Vancouver, and it's going to be here in Vancouver for, 12 weeks, and then it's in Squamish for 4 weeks, and Whistler for 4 weeks, I'd be going to Vancouver because they'd be spending more money. Locally, you would be getting a lot of cover, and I would probably go for a quote from someone here, especially as, I'm just giving you how I would think it and how my boss would probably want it if I was still doing it. I would go for a quote from Sydney or someone on the committee, probably John, because this was Squamish's idea. And if you guys, and if I was going to advise you on how to frame it, I would frame it as a collaboration between Vancouver and Sea to Sky, and isn't this nice and new? That's exactly how I would want to write it if I was trying to bring Squamish into the project.
Do you want us to carry on, or?
If it was half the cost, I would say go for it. But asking for, see, the thing is, I'm going into it blind because I can't remember what we've got to play with here in terms of our finances. So,
Would Squamish get it first,
Well,
I think is the big question. Because if it's going to be in Vancouver, I think my kids are probably going to be like, I can't wait till it comes to Squamish. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just worried
I
about.
put that caveat
just
in,
as cool.
that we get it first.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, why should we go first?
yeah, well, that would be one way around it.
At this point,
Come here
At
first.
this point, the discussion is, do we carry on? Do we tell Sydney to keep going, or do we tell her, thanks for your work so far? That's all.
We're not ready for it yet.
I think it's very soon, like it was next summer. So
I think the
I'm gonna
Okay.
reluctantly say shut it down for my vote.
Okay. That's 4 that are indicating, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Awesome.
Thank you very much
No
for
worries.
the time and
Thank you
effort
for
on it,
listening.
and
And
for sharing
honestly,
the
I think
details.
we need to be pushed with this kind of thing too.
I like it,
So-
I like it a lot. I just feel like the time frame
Yeah.
and the budget.
Totally fine. And now it's out there, and like
It's awesome that it's out
for
there.
ideas.
Thank
Great.
you.
Unless we get it first.
And now the next item on the agenda is the advisory design panel update, and Jackie has some collateral materials
I
to
just,
share.
once again, the committee didn't meet this past month.
Okay.
But we are meeting next week.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I'll send these around. These are past projects that we've looked at. And if you see any inspiration points that you want me to bring forward to the committee in the future for public art, please let me know. These are 2 current, one's waterfront landing, the other one's oceanfront. They're massive projects, and I think they're right for public art. The other ones that have come forward are a little smaller, though I still always push the public art agenda. These ones had more opportunity.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much for bringing these and sharing them with us. And if anybody has inspirations, you can share them with Jackie offline and take the conversation from there. Great. Thank you.
Can we see online?
Yeah, it's online, right? I believe so.
Yeah, well, you could go to the development showcase.
Yeah, it's under there.
And there will, I don't know if these specific documents are on the showcase, but that's a
Yeah.
good place
Yeah.
to start
Okay.
to check it out. So the next item is the staff update. Devin?
This is gonna be really quick. The Stan Clarke Park Mosaic, we haven't had time to get together,
No,
and
I
that's
was
been,
just wondering.
yeah, and that's been mine and Elaine's lack of capacity right now.
Okay.
We'll try and get something on the books for the next 2 weeks. I did have the opportunity to meet with the mosaicist again, and he came up and reviewed and provided additional comment and additional color around his recommendations, which I will follow up with Catherine and Meg on.
Okay, thank you.
Budget remains as is. You haven't spent anything. I had put in a placeholder just for a couple of things, but we have not issued any funds out to the Squamish school for their public art application
Yet. Okay.
Is everything set up for that, or
I don't-
what are we waiting for?
I haven't talked to Brody in a while. I reached out to him not too long ago asking for an update, so I suspect, I know you were in touch with him for a while?
Yeah, he did say that as soon as spring break was over,
Okay.
then there'd be full tilt on
Which
this
is
project.
now.
Okay.
Which is now, yeah. So what I'm suggesting is that maybe soon you'll be hearing from him.
Great, yep.
Public art inventory project?
Oh,
Did I-
yes,
did I
thank
miss
you.
that?
Sorry, I'm starting to,
It is late.
it's not bedtime. I just printed off what the public art inventory that we have to date. It's also on the GIS, thank you. And so our Howe Sound Secondary intern student is working away on reconciling. She goes out for a few hours every morning to take some photos of things and tries to reconcile, as well as working on other things. So I encourage you to continue on the GIS and continue on the spreadsheet. Pick your poison, whichever one you like. Fill it in, and she will make sure that they both match.
I've been adding to the GIS.
Great.
Which is really fun.
Good. Love it.
I have pictures sitting here that haven't quite migrated over, which I'll
Totally.
probably do tonight. Like, for instance, the coastal fort has a welcome totem, a welcome pole. I've got pictures of it, and I just have to upload it. Catherine?
Yes.
Oh,
Are we looking for, oh, I'm sorry.
no, you go.
Are we looking for sort of art on private property too? Because there's a beautiful fish at the top of Perth, the metal, and it's right in front of the house, and they basically stuck it. Yeah, I see it, and we don't.
If you can stare at it from standing on public land, I mean,
You can.
like this is where, candidly, I'm not the authority on this. We collectively determine the interpretation
That's
of.
what I wondered.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Put it in.
Yeah.
Put it in and
Put
then
the
we'll have
fish
to
in.
sort it
Totally.
out. But we
Right?
can't do that.
I don't know who that is.
I do.
You do?
I do.
There's a series of fish around. I think that's the
Uh,
artist.
This is.
This is a completely different fish.
Yeah,
Um,
this is that's,
It'll look
that was
like
that was our first project.
Oh.
Peter,
Christine.
are you taking us back to budget?
No.
Okay.
Actually, I can put in, because you guys have really, you were quite thrifty in the first quarter, and tonight you've hit it out of the park, so.
Thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, Peter.
I was wondering, and this might be an off-line question for maybe to liaise with you, Devon,
Yep.
or John. I might have mentioned it before with my previous life. I did a similar sort of study, capacity study, and I was wondering if I could either talk to you, Devon, or staff about the future of the GIS project and this, because as John just found out, it's really exciting and really fantastic to use it, and Meg, you'd also use it, the GIS thing. And I looked at it, and that's my little world of background, and so if it's okay with the committee, I'm just asking a couple of questions about it, see if we can make it really accessible and useful. But I don't want to do that without consultation.
I am happy to direct you to the subject matter expert on staff.
Yeah, to
So let's take that offline.
if that's the direction we're going, but I'll chat.
Okay, great.
Can I just really
Yes,
wonder,
Meg.
This, can we just put who actually filled it in so that people could know who's actually done it? So if there are questions about it,
It'll be logged. Because it's a Google Sheets or whatever. Did the work.
well, I actually put some in there and so.
Oh, you
it's
mean
not-
because you originally did it? Sorry. But you didn't add it yourself.
I didn't add it myself.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just wondering if that would make sense, so that whoever is inputting it, if they've got questions or whatever, that we know who's actually updated it kind of thing amongst our group. Does it make sense? And maybe it doesn't.
No, it does.
I don't care.
Yeah, just do your own initiative and go for it.
I can't get into this.
Oh,
I
you
can
can't.
use the map, but I can't get into this just because I don't have the technology.
You might not have a Gmail account.
That may be what it's going to do.
Okay.
So if we don't think it's important who actually put the information in and we want to get back at them, then that's it. Forget it.
Very good. Devin, anything else? Wow,
Thank you,
okay.
Sydney, for putting this together. I think it was you, wasn't it?
Oh, a mix of me and Anik, looks like. Hey, yes.
Yeah, no, it was you. Yeah.
Okay, so that takes us to number 5 on our agenda. Oh, Pete, did you have anything else?
Sorry,
Good?
I was going to say, Jackie, because I'm sitting here, John keeps thinking I'm asking a question, but I'm leaning like this because I'm used to this angle. It's like, I'm not asking questions.
I know you guys, yeah, you switched your normal seat.
I switched it off.
There is nothing to report under status of recommendations to council. There are no referrals from the council. So, okay, well, let's address that now.
Okay. 2 meetings ago, you had mentioned that council was having an information session about First Nations and interacting.
Mhm.
Was there anything that came of that you could share with us?
Sure, okay.
Yeah.
I actually will share 2 things briefly on that front because I myself have attended 2 different events. The first was a leadership forum, and it was organized by the Squamish Nation, hosted by the Squamish Nation, and the invitation list was all elected officials within the Squamish Nation traditional territory, along with senior or related staff. And that happened 2 weeks ago. There were about 80 people in attendance, and it was quite broad. It was really open. It was really flexible. It was the first time something like this had been held. And I thought it was extremely productive from the point of view of networking so that everybody knows who everybody is, and some exploration of what are common challenges, successes. And so out of it, the thought was we should do it again. And it was left with the Squamish Nation to determine whether it would happen again, when it will happen again, and what it would look like to have the group back up. I was really pleased with it. It was well attended by Squamish. The core leadership team, pretty much all was there from the district of Squamish. And all of the councillors, save one, were there. And then today, I was part of a workshop called Building Bridges, Creating a Village. I might not have that exactly correct, but it was a day-long workshop that was attended by all of the new council members, plus a number of District of Squamish staff who haven't previously had this particular workshop. A number of District of Squamish staff have previously been through the workshop, and it basically took us through building a village, working as a team, through the lens of First Nations governance, traditional First Nations governance. It was really super valuable. I enjoyed it and was thankful that I got the training. It was facilitated by Kathy Camilleri, who is Métis Irish Scottish, and Karen Shipman, her support person, Squamish Nation from the North Shore. So the two First Nations oriented trainings that I participated in that I thought were very valuable.
And that will help us hopefully go forward with our project. Pick up the thread maybe?
Stay tuned.
Okay.
Yeah, stay tuned. So number 6 is roundtable discussion. Does anybody have anything for us? Anna.
I'm just going back to procedure quickly. The public art application, is that for artists who want to request a grant? Like we have a formal application. And could we get them to give that to us? Because I think
It's happened in the past.
Because
What's the question?
Cortez gave us some information, like written information we can look at.
Yeah.
We didn't get anything on the Mural Festival, unless I missed it.
No, it was not submitted.
Because I'm just wondering if we have a formal public application, then I just feel like we're giving money out, but we're not,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Just, I would love to have that formal application with details, company details, what the money's going to be used for.
Like if we could turn back time, you'd have Stan submit that application.
I'm
that
just
form.
asking any artist that comes to see us, just to give us the application.
Yeah, okay.
And then,
And then he retroactively.
just so we have something, like a hard copy, not just
So
the
it goes
video's
to your
gone.
reporting business.
The video's gone.
It's almost like your report.
Well, something.
So I've got Amy next and then Angela. Go ahead, Amy.
Jack stole my thunder. I was just going to say the same thing. We should have, in the applicant package, a reporting form as well, or if, there's an award, just for consistency's sake. And
Sure, yeah.
How do we get there?
Devin.
I would just say maybe we can park that conversation and discuss it next time because there's different, this was intended to be a low barrier granting opportunity. And so you guys can then discuss the validity of the reporting and what that structure, you guys can agree on a reporting structure.
Okay.
Like even if we had a video or something, just something on paper.
Well, learning experience
Okay.
for next time, if nothing else.
And Angela.
I was just going to ask if we could table for a future meeting, maybe it's already been put in the notes, to discuss the idea of consistently funding the Squanderer Mural Festival, working with Stan on that, so that maybe he doesn't have to do an application every year.
Unless he's asking for a different amount of money, just so we can.
Well,
have-
yeah, like
that we
changing
have a certain
the budget,
Yeah,
maybe,
it's-
but, yeah.
Okay. Terry,
Just a table
Terry,
discussion.
you captured that for future reference. Good. Anybody else in the round table?
Just
Anna.
another quick thing,
Yes.
and I'm just learning all this, so
Yes.
excuse me, it's just kind of a procedural. So we get the presentation, we ask questions, and we have to decide right then and there in front of them if we're going to vote for it, or is
Nope.
it something that we can say thank you and then, because sometimes I'm not sure if I just want to make that decision on the spot and just.
Yeah, Devin?
That is why I offered the committee the opportunity, the process, and I suggested that you guys consider both applications and then.
Yeah,
I thought we were going to follow that, yeah.
I just find it a bit awkward that I have to decide right away. And I know it's a public meeting and it's video and that's totally
Yeah.
fine, but it's just, takes me a while.
Yeah, well, and I quite purposefully jumped, and I wanted them to leave, knowing whether they were going to get it or not. So, that was me pushing that through, and
And that's probably okay for most things, but some of them are kind of complicated.
You, as a committee member, have the opportunity to table a motion. And if you're, and that motion can exist in terms of deferring the decision until later on in the meeting.
Or the next
okay.
meeting,
Correct.
Okay.
if that's your
permits,
desire.
yeah.
All right.
Can you defer something into an in-camera situation?
You can, not in this specific situation.
Okay.
There's criteria. There's 3 things, and off the top of
No
it's
worries.
9 o'clock,
I just
and
wanted to know what
my
the
brain
procedure
has
was.
left the building.
The 3 criteria are legal, labor, or personnel,
Yeah,
and land.
property.
Property. land.
Okay.
So if it doesn't fall under those titles, then it needs to be dealt with in an open session.
Open and transparent government.
For sure, I just wondered what the contexts were.
Yeah, sure.
Good, final call for roundtable topics.
Just a request that anybody who has any comments on this.
Yes, to
Send them
talk
in.
to you.
Can
Very
I
good.
follow this and have a look through it? What they got from me?
Storm's way back.
So, yes, moved that the meeting be terminated by Meg Bello, seconded by Angela. All those in favor? Unanimous, motion carries. Thank you, have a great evening.